About Eastern Europe. So this is a region that has seen a lot of turmoil throughout its history. Empires have come and gone. Countries have come and gone. Soviet Union came and went. And then lines of countries get drawn and then redrawn, and it's been kind of crazy, a lot of conflict. But all through this, they have built up a very kind of cool culture. So we get to talk about that today. So most Eastern Europeans are ethnically Slavic. So this means that they're Indo-Europeans who migrated in from Asia. So they came in through Russia and migrated down into Europe. And so they're divided into three groups. So you have your Eastern Slavs, which would be your Ukrainians, Russians, and Belarusians. So Syria here. Excuse me. Your Western Slavs are your Poles, your Czechs, and your Slovaks. And then your South Slavs are the Serbs, the Croats, the Slovens, and then the Macedonians. So this area here, which used to be called Yugoslavia. And then you have in Bulgaria and a little bit of Romania a group known as the Roma. This is not a very large group, but it's an interesting group. They used to be called Gypsies. Okay, so early peoples and empires. So the earliest Slavs, like I mentioned, migrated from Asia thousands of years ago, and they settled in Ukraine and Poland primarily. And then the Czechs moved and they settled into Bohemia in the 500s. So Bohemia is like right in this region here, a little bit of Germany here. Um, so Great Moravia is going to be an empire that they're going to create. It's a Slavic empire and cover much of Central Europe in the 700s. I'm going to show you that on the next slide, what that looked like. And then other Slavs are going to move into Croatia, Serbia, and Slovenia. And then the Byzantine Empire is going to take control. So the Byzantine Empire is the Eastern Roman Empire. So what happened is obviously Rome's like right here. So the Romans are going to have a war with Philip of Macedon. He's Philip V, and he's going to take over, or he took over this part here. But the Romans came in, had a war with them, and took control of a lot of what's called the Balkan Peninsula here. Um, so the Byzantine Empire is going to control this area when the Roman Empire gets split in two. And so when that happens, the Christianity kind of splits as well, and they go the way of Eastern Orthodoxy, which we'll talk more about a little bit later. And then after the Byzantine Empire fell, the Ottoman Turks caused it to fall, and the Ottoman Empire, who are Muslims, took control in the 1400s, and they're going to control this area for a very long time, all the way up until World War One. So this right here is Great Moravia. So this was established, like I said, in the 700s. So this is like Middle Ages. So this would be after the uh, after the fall of the Roman Empire. And then this right here. So this is before that. This would be the Byzantine Empire here. So you could see Great Moravia would be like right in this area. So this is the Byzantine Empire, everything in orange here. So this is kind of what we're talking about right here as Eastern Europe. And then this right here shows the Ottoman Empire at its height. It controlled all of this that's colored on here. And so you can see most of that is, or a lot of that is Eastern Europe. So the Balkan Slavs overthrew the Ottoman Empire in the early 1900s. This happened at the end of World War One. So with the Treaty of Versailles that ended World War One, it's going to break up the Ottoman Empire into several countries. Okay, one of them is going to be Yugoslavia. So this area right here, these are the present day countries that exist in what used to be Yugoslavia. So the Serbians really wanted to have what they called a Slavic state, and this was their answer. So all of this was one country from World War One to basically the end of the Cold War. And the issue is there's a lot of different ethnic groups in here because remember there's a lot of different types of Slavic peoples, and they don't all get along with each other. So Balkanization is a term that's going to come up from this because this is on the Balkan Peninsula. Balkanization is the division of a region into smaller regions that are often hostile with each other. And that's basically what happened here. Is a lot of people got grouped together that didn't like each other, and then there was a lot of fighting because of that. So during the Cold War, Eastern Europe saw a lot of battles in World War II, and then after the war, Yugoslavia emerged as a communist country. Um, so they will fall under control of the Soviet Union as what's called a satellite state. Okay, so they're still technically independent. This is Yugoslavia right here, but they are basically very closely allied with the Soviet Union. But Yugoslavia was really fractured along ethnic lines at the end of the Cold War. And so some republics started to declare independence inside of Yugoslavia. And then ethnic hatreds sparked violence in particular, Bosnia and Herzegovina and Kosovo. So the Serbians went through what was called ethnic cleansing. So this was a policy basically of either killing rival ethnic groups or expelling them. Okay, so that was pretty vicious. It was basically genocide of a lot of different ethnicities within Yugoslavia. So a new era. So during the Cold War, revolts against the communist rule ravaged Eastern Europe, and by 1989, when the communist government started to fall, there started to be talk of creating more democratic governments. So in the 90s, free elections installed democratic governments, and since then, many of the Eastern European countries have joined the EU. So you can see here, there's some here on the Balkans that are still kind of a candidate. Turkey is still a candidate. Turkey is probably never going to join because they don't meet some of the criteria. But you can see much of Eastern Europe here is part of the EU today. Language and religion. So most people speak Indo-European languages. So the most common are Polish and Czech. As far as religion goes, so Roman Catholicism is very popular. You could see in this region here, the majority Catholic. And then Eastern Orthodoxy is very, very popular. So you can see all the green here is Eastern Orthodoxy. And then Islam is popular, is most common in these yellow areas. But we've seen a lot of religious and ethnic differences that these were really at the heart of the conflicts that we saw in the Balkans. And so they've still to this day continued to struggle with overcoming some of these differences. As far as education and healthcare, they have access to both. So literacy rates are very high, and school is mandatory for children, and it's even free for them. And then their healthcare is okay, not quite as good as Western Europe, but not terrible. But it's pretty good, and especially in the cities, you get better healthcare than you do in the rural areas. Art and leisure. So traditional art exists throughout the region. So folk and classical music in particular are important among the Czech, Hungarian, Slovaks, and Slovens. So especially the Czech, they were kind of in the center of a lot of that classical music that was being made. And in the cities, modern music is much more popular. So that's music that like we listen to like from the U.S. and from Western Europe. You see a lot more of that. Families are small, much like most of Europe. So you, in general, that you would live with like your nuclear family, so parents and children. In more rural areas, you'll see more people living with more extended families, but that doesn't happen a ton. But the Soviet Union also encouraged sports and PE programs. And so you kind of see the remnants of that in places like Ukraine, for example. They still have many swimming pools from the Soviet era. So this right here is one of them. And then Hungarians have actually excelled at water sports, even though they're in a landlocked country. So that means they don't have water around them anywhere. They have lakes and rivers and that. But leisure time is mostly spent with families and preparing traditional meals, much like we do here. So, all right, that's all I got for you guys today. Don't forget to do your processor and have a good day.